The climate crisis is perhaps the most urgent and existential challenge of our time. Africa, despite contributing the least to global emissions, bear the greatest burden through floods, droughts, displacement, and food insecurity. We have scientific consensus that these extreme weather events are human-induced. But even if it were otherwise, decarbonization of the economy is progress in its own right. Conservation of nature and clean air are desirable ends in and of themselves. But 30 COP conferences later, national interests continue to stand in the way of global collective action, notwithstanding the fact that the atmosphere has no national boundaries. We continue, in my opinion, to play dice with nature. We envision a digital future that is Kenya in location, Africa in identity, and global in impact. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya and China are not merely trade partners. We are co-architects of a new world order, one that is fair, inclusive, and sustainable. Let us measure our success not in GDP growth or trade volumes, but in how many lives we uplift, how many futures we secure, and how much dignity we restore. This visit, as the first African state visit to China this year, mirrors my 2024 visit to the United States, the first African state visit there in 15 years. Perhaps, symbolically, Kenya can serve as a bridge between East and West, North and South, in an era of deepening geopolitical tensions. Let this be our shared legacy that China and Africa, through trust, vision, and partnership, helped build the foundation for a 21st century multilateralism that serves all humanity. It is still easier to reform this financial architecture, even though the latter would be a better option. At the heart of the Bretton Woods institution is a fundamental issue. These are shareholder institutions. At the time they were formed, the shareholders were also the primary stakeholders and beneficiaries. Both the World Bank and IMF have evolved into development finance institutions, but the ownership and power remains with the wealthy countries that they no longer serve. The interests of the shareholders and stakeholders and beneficiaries are at great variance almost all the time. This anomaly became apparently glaring during the IMF SDR issuance, where 64% of allocations ended up in wealthy countries that did not need liquidity support. The poorest countries, which needed it most, received only 2.4%. That is the extent of disconnect between the shareholders' interests and the stakeholders and beneficiaries' interests. There are many reforms required of these institutions, but I believe that the most consequential is governance changes that will transform them into independent, apolitical global institutions, insulated from the national interest of their shareholders. And you know what? This requires no more than adopting modern corporate governance best practice. The shareholders should elect directors, and the directors should appoint and supervise competent professional management. Just as simple as that. I believe reform, not abandonment of multilateral system, is the path. Kenya has remained a non-aligned nation committed to peaceful resolution of conflict and sovereignty and mutual respect. We support the One China policy, a two-state solution in the Middle East, and dialogue, not escalation, in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. As we say in Africa, when two bulls fight, the grass suffers. Let us choose understanding over confrontation.